There is so much more to life than what we see. What if we were capable of feeling it? This is the Inner Guide Podcast, a journey back to you. Welcome to the Inner Guide Podcast, the journey back to you. My name is Isabel Churchill, and I'm super excited to be here with you today. As I mentioned in the last episode, I promised I would find a title for my podcast. It just seems so right to pick the name of my business, which is the Inner Guide Center. The Inner Guide is probably the best way to journey back to yourself. So it just felt perfect to utilize that same name. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about what made me who I am and how I got where I am today. I haven't talked much about the present. The last episode was a lot about my past. And today, we'll talk about how I became who I am today. A lot of time in our journey back to ourself, what brings us back to us, to the aspect of ourselves that we probably denied, is when we face challenges. Back in 2014, I remember very clearly, it was on a Saturday morning. That Saturday morning, I was going to my studio where I teach dance, and I had a group of ladies coming in for a private class. I was in the studio and I was getting ready, and I got this random text, and at that time I was married with my first husband. And the text was him texting his, I guess you can call his mistress. And I didn't know back then that he was cheating on me. And it was just completely devastating. I did have the intuition a few times throughout the year. I asked him if he was cheating on me, and he convinced me he wasn't. But it just tells you how sometimes our intuition is right, and then the world and the situation makes it that you don't really trust it. But at the same time, what is the most sacred in a relationship is trust. And I wanted to trust him. So I cannot blame myself for not seeing it before, and I cannot blame myself for not trusting my intuition, and I can just accept that that's how it unfolded. But all that to say is, on that September morning, on the Saturday morning, that completely shook my world. And I'm not sure what happened then. I'm not sure what really happened, because the way it unfolded was almost like surreal. So just put yourself in my shoes for a second. I have been with that person for almost 8 years, and we knew each other. We had a pretty good life. We had bought a house. We had both a really good job with the government. I had my business on the side, and I was just going to teach my dance class. And I get this text, and on top of it, in the text, what's weird is that what bothers me the most is not the fact that he had a mistress, but what he said about me in the text. He was actually lying about saying how I was a mean person and all that. And it just really hit me hard that the person that I was married to, that I love, and don't forget that I am a Leo in astrology, so I have a very strong sense of committing, and also a very strong sense of being loyal. So this really, it hurt so hard. And yet, something took upon me, and I called him right away. I didn't really give him a chance to talk, and I just said, I'm going to come home in about an hour and a half, and you better be there, because we're going to have a big conversation. And I hung up, and the people started coming in for my class, and I taught my class as if nothing had happened, which for me was like a moment of, it's so beautiful when I look at it right now, because dance for me is so deep. So I was able to dance and just go inside and allow the time, allow the space to really recenter myself after having this event that really shook me. And honestly, I don't know how I did it, but I did it, and I don't think my clients suspected anything had happened. So they left, and I packed in my stuff, and I got into the car, and that's when I started shaking from everywhere, and I just felt something big was happening. Drove home, had a conversation with what is now my ex, of course, and it was just like so clear to me. It was like the path was opening up. And I wasn't resisting. I was not resisting. And I think that's the big difference that we have to learn in life, is that when we have a challenge, the worst thing we can do is resist it. The worst thing we can do is resist change and try to stop the change from happening. And at that point, I just completely surrender. And that was about 7 years after my depression. And they say that cycles comes in 7. So it was definitely the case for me. And that just happened. And what's the biggest thing that I'm like realizing afterward is that the day after, so the Sunday, was my level 3 Reiki attunement. And I always remember that people would say that Reiki is just something that shifts your life for the best. And at that point, I was starting to pay a bit more attention to the subtle signs of the universe, looking at like numbers and looking at synchronicities around me. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to cancel it. I'm going to go to my class. And I went and I got my attunement, and I cried a lot, of course. I had to release some emotions. I mean, all of a sudden your life is completely changing. And I want you to understand that is when you experience something so challenging, it's okay to feel. What's not okay is to resist it. What's not okay is to resist it, because that's what creates suffering. Sadness is not suffering. Suffering is when you really expect something different from your reality and you're trying so hard to change your reality, but yet it's not happening because it's not necessarily meant for you. So I wasn't suffering. I was sad. I was really experiencing some very difficult emotions. But yet, I had this part of me that was trusting the process. And thank goodness I had my Reiki master teacher, Jocelyn. She was absolutely pivotal, a very important person in my in my journey. And I don't know, I just felt like I was entering this new phase of my life. And I don't know if you've turned your life around, but within 2 weeks, I had put an offer on a house. I was getting ready to move out. I bought a house. I moved into my house. And within a month, everything had completely changed except for the job I had back then. And of course, my dance school. So it was just interesting to see how things just move so fast. And I feel it's because I was not resisting it. I was just trusting the process. Everything was falling last minute, such as like the financial aspect to pay for my house and all these things, but it was moving. And it really taught me a very humbling lesson of just trust that the process and everything will be okay. So those weeks were difficult, but yet I was able to move around pretty fast. And the funniest thing is that I decided I would not commit to anyone. And you know, when you make those decisions, you don't really, I don't know, you closed yourself off to opportunities when you decide you're not going to do something. So of course the universe decided to present to me my soulmate at that time, because I just totally decided I was blocking everything off. And that's when I met my husband, today's husband, Austin. And it was just interesting time in my life. everything was moving fast. I started my master teacher that I finished in 2017. Back then, 2017, I had met my husband and we moved in together. It was just like everything fell in place. And I moved to the US. My husband is US military, and I just started that new journey with him. So 2014 to 2017 was really a time of transition where I put back my life together. And 2017 moved to the US, and I had a job. I started a job just before moving to the US. I didn't lose my house. I decided to sell my house because I couldn't afford it anymore. There was a lot of financial trouble that I wanted to solve before moving to the US. So I solved all those issues by selling my house and moved into a tiny little apartment in the basement of a house, which I thought I would never do, but I did because I felt it was the right decision. And sometimes we just have to make those tough decisions to shift our lifestyle so that we can refocus the energy. So that was 2014, 2017 was very life-changing. It was a huge transition phase. And I started writing I was a ghostwriter. That was my side job. And like most people cannot perform the way I perform. But back then I was a full-time director for Diabetes Canada for their health coaching program. So I was the director for 6 or 7 coaches, I think, in the province of New Brunswick. I was also running my side business as a psychotherapist, also my dance school and my fitness school. And on top of that, I was a ghost writer that I was writing books for other people. And I know it kind of sound like crazy right now saying that, but I was doing all those things and I was happy and I was fine. I just have this ability to really perform, do a lot of things in a very short time. Of course, as long as I enjoy doing those things. And I love writing. So I did back then. And the reason why I'm sharing that is through this writing, I found a client that was looking for some kind of a writer around wellness. And back then, I had a few years of experience as a wellness coach, a wellness consultant for the province of New Brunswick. I was the expert on the positive psychology in New Brunswick. And I acquired a lot of knowledge. And when somebody asked me to write a book and we started exploring the subject, and I said, well, I'm a wellness coach. I write a lot about motivation and engagement. I'm in positive psychology, but they seem to already have expert writers on that subject. And she said, what other skills do you have? And I said, well, I just became a master teacher in Reiki. And she's like, yes, can you write me a Reiki course? And I thought, okay. I just started and it was kind of weird, but I did. And I wrote a Reiki course and they published it. So that's kind of the crazy timeline. You know, things in your life will happen at a weird time. Things of your life will happen and it's almost like you're just flowing through life, and things that you'll have done years ago will start making sense today. And that's what happened with Reiki. 2017, I was hired to do that. I wrote throughout. I moved to the US. I think I published it when I was in the US. It was I gave them my document and it took about a year for them to actually launch the program. It was a whole online Reiki course that I wrote for them. And I had a commitment with them is that if they launched a program, the students had to be connected to me, because I felt like you can't just learn Reiki alone. It doesn't make any sense. You have to have a connection with a teacher. To me, you have to have an attunement with a teacher. So I would offer those attunements to those of them who were interested and all that. So in the winter through, I would say, winter 2016, 2017. I think it was a year before. Sorry, the timelines doesn't make sense to me sometimes. August 2017 gave the final document to the company. And through that year, my husband and I, we were in Portland, Maine, looking for a house. It wasn't working. And that's something else that I've learned through that summer is that when something is not working, pay attention. It might just not be the right moment or the right opportunity. And we looked for a house. We probably put like 7 or 8 offers. And that was back before the huge market is on right now. But we already thought it was expensive in Portland, Maine. It just didn't make sense. And nothing really worked out. So at one point in time in the spring of 2018, I told my husband, I said, you know what, let's just stop looking for a house. I can't do it anymore. And our relationship was not great because he was back then a military recruiter. So if anyone who's listening to me is a military spouse of a recruiter, especially in the US, I'm sending tons of love to you because I know how challenging it can be. They work every day, every hour of the day, every weekend, all the time. They're always on. So the family life kind of get really disrupted by that. So it was really challenging. And at one point in time, I was so sad of seeing how miserable my husband was in his field. He loved what he did, but it was more who he did it with. Like his team was not supportive. And it was just not a great spot. And it was challenging. And he was good at what he did. So it was really devastating for me to see how he was not supported by his leadership. And so I decided basically to plant a seed and say, hey, like there's got to be other opportunities for you. There's got to be other work you can do. You can't just stay here. And he was getting at a point where he was ready to be promoted to another rank, and it was not happening. And they were promoting other people that were not as performing as him, and it made no sense. And it was really weighing on him. And in August, I believe, he found a new job, and it was like an international or a national job where we could be moving anywhere. And that worked out. And in the summer, we found out we were going to North Carolina and to Fort Bragg, which is a military post that is fairly big right in the center of North Carolina and close to Fayetteville. So we moved there in February, at the end of January 2019. But when I learned that we were going to North Carolina, at that time, I was a project manager for a hospital in Portland, and I was making really decent money. I had finally reached my financial goal. I was really good at what I did, but it was not fulfilling anymore. In August, something shifted in me. And that's another aspect I want you to know is that it's okay to change. If you've been a nurse your whole life and one day you wake up and you don't want to be a nurse, don't resist the change. Learn from my experience. Do not resist change. It's okay. Because we have this idea in our mind that, oh my God, I'm making $110,000 a year. And I need to stay in the job that gives me that money. What about my retirement? All those things. That's so superficial. It's so superficial. Like it's not what you're on earth to do. So pay attention to those moments. And for me, I was already in my spirituality, being a master teacher Reiki. I felt like I was getting in alignment with myself. And I was like, okay, I guess it's time for me to leave the project management. I know to this day that my boss back then probably don't understand my choice, and that's okay. Like, it's just how I have evolved, and it was hard. I was a black belt, Lean Six Sigma practitioner. Like, I had really good results, really good recognition. I had great support. I had the best boss ever. Like, I just had it all, but yet it was not fulfilling anymore. So I just listened to it, and I took the opportunity when we moved to North Carolina in February to just leave everything behind. And that was really scary. But like I said, it's all about timing how things unfold. So I made that decision to leave my job without really knowing what would happen. But I knew in August I would leave my job because I had to. We were moving to North Carolina. And a month later in September, I got a call from the company that I wrote the Reiki class to. And she's like, okay, we're launching on October of 2018. No, that was 2019. I'm really confused with time. No, that was 2018. October 2018, we launched my course. And within a month, I had 300 students already. So it was really popular. And I was really amazed by how popular it was. So it kind of like gave me this trust that I had made the right decision to leave my job. And I spoke to my husband and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go full time with my business. I'm not going to look for anything in North Carolina because I had looked and didn't have any job that was in my specialty. I was just too specialized, I guess, for what they could offer. So left everything behind. I even gave my resignation in January. I think it was January 1st I would be done, but then I had some side projects I did with them. But all that to say that I just jumped into my business. And my business was all about Reiki at that time. But I had this goal, I had this plan of building a energy healing school, an online school with support from teachers. Because for me, it is possible to learn distance, but you have to have the support of a teacher. That's how I feel anyway. So I just did that, and it just seems so amazing now because it was scary back then. It was super scary. Like, if you've ever tried to leave everything behind, it's just scary to leave a career, like a financial career that I was doing super well and it was bringing so much money. And I left everything. And I remember the first year I made like $23,000. But yet I survived and I didn't have to do anything. So if you just started your business, it's okay that you're not at the top yet. And it's okay to be afraid. And it's okay to go through life with fear. But don't let fear stop you from doing what you want to do. I think there's this saying that says, the dreams have been more destroyed by the fear of not doing it than actually the failure of doing it. So the fear is more what stops us from doing what we want than the actual failure. So launched my business, launched everything, started that, and that's been my journey. I'm now located in Washington, D.C., and I have my business in Fairfax, Virginia. It's called the Inner Guide Center. I actually have two businesses. So the Inner Guide Center is my English business where I do local teaching. I also have, I do channeling a lot. So I use my intuitive abilities to help people, guide them. I kind of like seeing it almost like a psychotherapy with intuition in some ways. Like psychotherapy with your guides. And I also have a second business, which is my healing school, and it's all in French. So I have two businesses to this day. I love what I do. I just, I enjoy it so much. And I just love waking up every morning and do what I do. Do I make the same amount of money as I did when I was a project manager? No, but I feel like I don't need that. And I feel like I'm way more rich, living a richer life through the things that I do every day. And that would have never happened if I did not let go and surrender to change back in 2014 when I got this text message from my ex-husband to his mistress. So it just shows that whatever is meant to happen in your life, it will happen. And sometimes you might not learn the first time. I didn't share with you that back in 2008, I had the opportunity to launch my business like back then. I wanted to do it. I wanted to go 100% in my business back then, which was in psychotherapy, but I was starting to do a lot of coaching and wellness and all that. And I didn't do it because I felt my ex-husband, or back then my first husband, was not supportive. And he kind of put fear in me that I wouldn't be able to do enough financially. So I didn't do it. So that was my first, if you want to say failure, I don't see it as a failure. It was a learning experience, but I had the opportunity to launch it. So just know that I started my business as soon as I left university in 2007, and it only took, almost 10 years to fully launch, more than 10 years to fully launch, because in 2019 is when I launched fully my business. So 12 years it took before I took this step again. So don't be harsh on yourself. Just allow things to flow, and trust is something that takes a long time to build within ourselves. It's a journey. It's really a process. But I hope that what I'm sharing with you today can inspire you to face the music and also surrender to what is going on within your life. So to this day, I am very fulfilled with my businesses. I have this amazing office in Fairfax, Virginia, where I meet wonderful people almost every day. I don't go to the office every day, but it's just been such a beautiful journey. And I feel like this podcast is another way to reach out to the mass, to reach out to the world. And I just feel so guided to accompany you on this journey. And whatever you're going through, know that you're never alone. And I know it's a cliche, but it's so true. There's so many other people that are a blessing and will be a blessing in your life, and you're a blessing to someone else's life. But it's a matter of finding the alignment with yourself. I have to say that most of the people I hang out with when I was in Portland, Maine is no longer in my life, just because I switch, I change, I transition. And even more before 2014, a lot of people are no longer in my life. A lot of things has changed and shifted. And that's what I mean by surrender to the process. Just allow things to happen. And just like nature, things will die, but things will live again also. And it's that constant cycle. We're moving through our seasons. We have seasons in our life where there is the summer, there is the fall, the winter, and the spring. So all those seasons are through our life too. And it's a matter of allowing things to unfold. The tree does not resist a leaf from falling. The tree is not sad when it's winter. It just knows that there will be a spring coming up, but that it's time to be in stillness. So I think we can dance through those seasons and find ways to really flow with the timing, flow with the season of our life. And the beauty is that we're all different. So our seasons will be different from one person to the other. Although there is themes, there is energy themes, which I will probably talk more about eventually in this podcast, but there is collective themes where most of us all go through. Currently, I'm recording this, and it is an energy of summer, and there's a lot of things unfolding. We are in the month of July, and July for me this year, 2022, is really a time of love. And it's finding love within, and it's all those aspects that are affecting us collectively. So I sense that there is collective themes, but there's also personal evolution and cycles that we have to face. So this is the present. So we've had the past my past in the last episode. Today is the present. And next week we'll start journeying together because now we are connected. Now we know each other and now we can start to work together. So next week is our next episode and we'll explore a little bit more about this journey. What are the things that, where do we start with this, or how did we start and where do we go? What are the things to look forward to? And I'll have different ways to explore themes in the coming podcast. But I also invite you to reach out to me and let me know what you want to hear. What are your challenges? What are the things that you don't really understand how it's unfolding? And maybe eventually we'll have a live podcast and we'll be able to connect and share with each other live. Sending you tons of love. Thank you for being present, and let's get started on this journey together.